Good afternoon, I'm James Ezimoha and you're watching A News. Let's see your headlines. World political and religious leaders congratulate new Pope Leo XIV. European foreign ministers sign a statement for a special tribunal to try Russia for aggression against Ukraine. Russia marks the 80th anniversary of Victory Day with a large military parade in central Moscow. The election of Pope Leo XIV, the first American to lead the Catholic Church, has stirred a global wave of emotion and unity as Catholics worldwide respond to the historic moment.
The announcement came during a morning mass at Chicago's Holy Name Cathedral, Pope Leo's hometown parish. Worshippers were still receiving the sacrament when news broke that their own had become the leader of the world's 1.4 billion Catholics.
My information is correct. The brand new Holy Father, the brand new Pope, is American-born Cardinal, now Pope, Cardinal Robert Prevost, born on the south side of Chicago. He's taken the name Leo XIV.
Church leaders in Chicago expressed astonishment and pride, calling the moment both spiritual and personal.
He's a very humble, a very kind person, and someone who really does look to the Lord for guidance in all that he does.
In Washington, clergy emphasized Pope Leo's ability to bridge continents, pointing to his time as a bishop in Peru.
Now, also bishop in Peru, you have a mix of both worlds, Latin America, America.
Outside St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City, the news caught many by surprise, but sparked hope.
And when he was announced and getting to see how warmly he was received by the individuals there, I thought it was very promising, and I think that Pope Leo is going to have a tremendous tenure as Pope.
In Los Angeles, the city's Archbishop highlighted Leo XIV's Latin American ties, seen as essential for a region deeply rooted in Catholic tradition.
He talked about the need to be a missionary church and the need for everyone in the church to be missionaries, proclaiming the love of Jesus Christ.
In Rio, Brazilian Catholics praised Leo XIV's spiritual depth and independence.
That he will not succumb to ideological narratives and bring the word of Christ to the whole world.
In Argentina, where Pope Francis once served, the faithful voiced hope that Leo XIV will continue a legacy of inclusion and peace.
He is very loved, has worked a lot in Peru. We believe he will make a good papacy.
At St. Peter's Square, the crowd erupted after a brief pause when Cardinal Prevost's name was announced. US Catholics in Rome spoke with pride, many surprised but uplifted.
It's a big surprise and a big blessing for the church and for the church in the United States also. He's a missionary, he's a religious from the Augustine order, and he has a lot of deep spirituality for the Holy Church.
The ripple effect reached Australia, where Catholics welcomed the promise of continuity and youth.
I hope he does carry on with Francis's legacy of inclusivity, particularly, and also, you know, making the church appealing to young people. I think that would be really, really lovely to see.
Pope Leo XIV was elected by a 2/3 majority of 133 cardinals after the death of Pope Francis last month. At 69, he brings decades of missionary experience in Peru, dual US-Peruvian citizenship, and a quiet spiritual style. While a surprise pick, the new Pope now faces a world watching closely, expecting leadership rooted in humility, unity, and reform.
To the city and to the whole world.
So that blessing extends to everyone.
World leaders have offered congratulations and shared their hopes following the election of Pope Leo XIV, marking a historic moment for the Catholic Church with the election of its first American pontiff.
The election of the first American pope, a former missionary in Peru, known for his commitment to social justice and decades-long service in Latin America, marks a historic moment for the Church and global diplomacy. In the United States, where Pope Leo XIV was born in Illinois, reactions were swift and emotionally resonant. US President Donald Trump has congratulated Pope Leo XIV, who became the first American to lead the Catholic Church. President Trump welcomed the news, calling it a proud moment for the country and saying he looks forward to meeting the new Pope. Vice President J.D. Vance posted, "Congratulations to Leo XIV, the first American Pope, on his election." Vance, however, has faced past criticism from the Pope for his policy views. European Parliament President Roberta Metsola called the Pope a beacon of hope, while EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen emphasized wisdom and dialogue. On behalf of the European Union, Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas highlighted the Pope's unique role in global diplomacy and emphasized the bloc's interest in deepening ties with the Holy See. Meanwhile, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk shared a message steeped in symbolism. Habemus Papam, evil will not prevail. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni praised Leo XIV's inaugural message as a powerful call to peace, brotherhood and responsibility. French President Emmanuel Macron called this a historic moment for the Catholic Church, sending a fraternal message on behalf of France. Hungary's Viktor Orban simply declared a new hope. God bless Pope Leo XIV. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky welcomed continued Vatican support for justice and peace. Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez congratulated the Catholic Church, expressing hope that the new pontificate would strengthen dialogue and human rights. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum reaffirmed a shared commitment to world peace and prosperity, while Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva called on Pope Leo to continue the legacy of Pope Francis, especially in promoting peace, social justice and environmental protection. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi expressed hope that Leo XIV would uphold values of peace, tolerance and mutual respect. From Lebanon, Prime Minister Nawaf Salam offered congratulations to Catholics in Lebanon and around the world. Pope Leo XIV, an Augustinian friar by background, brings a strong pastoral and academic legacy to the papacy. In his first remarks, he called for peace over conflict, unity over division, and compassion over fear.
History is made at the Vatican. At 69 years old, Robert Francis Prevost has been elected the 267th Pope. Taking the name Leo XIV, he becomes the first American to lead the Catholic Church. In this special report, we look at the man behind the new papacy and the path that led him to St. Peter's Basilica.
Even before his name echoed from the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica, the crowds below were already chanting, "Long live the Pope." At 69 years old, Robert Francis Prevost becomes the 267th Pope in the history of the Catholic Church. He will be known as Leo XIV, the first American ever to hold the title.
Fratelli e sorelle di Roma, d'Italia.
Born in Chicago in 1955 to parents of Spanish and Franco-Italian heritage, he was ordained in 1982. 3 years later, he left for Peru as a missionary, a journey that would shape his life and his papacy. For over a decade, Prevost lived and worked in the northwestern city of Trujillo, serving poor and marginalized communities. Today, he holds Peruvian nationality and is cherished there as one of their own.
Allow me to follow up on that same blessing. God loves us, God loves you all, and evil will not prevail. We are all in God's hands. Therefore, without fear, united, hand in hand with God and each other, let us go forward.
Before his election, Leo XIV played a pivotal role as prefect of the Dicastery for Bishops, a powerful body that selects and oversees bishops across Latin America. He also supported Pope Francis's landmark decision to include women in that process. He has echoed Francis's call to protect the planet, urging a shift from words to action, and advocating a new relationship of reciprocity with the environment. By choosing the name Leo, the new pope aligns himself with a legacy of bold, socially conscious leadership. Experts see echoes of Pope Leo XIII, the 19th century pontiff, who defended workers' rights during the rise of industrial capitalism. From immigrant roots in Chicago to the spiritual helm of 1.3 billion Catholics, Pope Leo XIV brings a blend of humility, global awareness, and pastoral experience. A new chapter begins, one hand in tradition, the other reaching towards the future.
Almost 20 European foreign ministers have gathered in Lviv, Ukraine, where they signed a statement endorsing the creation of a special tribunal to try Russia for aggression against Ukraine.
Almost 20 European foreign ministers arrived in city of western Ukraine, Lviv. During the visit, they took part in a memorial ceremony at a military cemetery where they paid tribute to Ukrainian soldiers killed in the war. The delegation was led by Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal and included EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas and British Foreign Secretary David Lammy.
It is European Day in Europe that we celebrate, and I think it's very symbolic that we are here. I think everybody who cares for freedom should see what we are seeing here today.
And we are absolutely crystal clear that Mr. Putin should bring this war to an end, should accept the ceasefire that President Trump has urged him to accept, and should understand that if he does not do that, then of course he will meet the force of the international community with a severe package of sanctions.
Following the ceremony, the ministers gathered for a meeting where they signed the Lviv Statement, a joint declaration endorsing the creation of a special tribunal to prosecute Russia for the crime of aggression against Ukraine. President Volodymyr Zelensky addressed the meeting in a video message, calling the tribunal a moral obligation and a necessary step to deter future acts of aggression. The proposed tribunal would be established under the framework of the Council of Europe. Legal groundwork for the court has already been completed, and it could begin operating as early as next year. While Russian officials currently have immunity while in office, the tribunal would allow prosecutors to prepare cases for when that immunity expires. Alongside the political statement, the United Kingdom announced new sanctions targeting Russia's so-called shadow fleet, used to transport oil in violation of international restrictions. European governments also continue to push for an unconditional 30-day ceasefire, a proposal originally put forward by the United States.
Russia marked the 80th anniversary of Victory Day with a large military parade in central Moscow as President Vladimir Putin and 29 foreign leaders watched from Red Square.
Russia celebrates the 80th anniversary of the World War II victory over Nazi Germany with a military parade led by President Vladimir Putin and attended by Chinese President Xi Jinping. Moscow, particularly Red Square and surrounding areas, has been under a tight lockdown. The event honours the end of World War II and those who served, but preparations have taken place under heightened security following 3 days of Ukrainian drone strikes. The attacks disrupted Moscow airports, affecting around 60,000 travellers and causing delays or cancellations of about 350 flights. Ukraine and Russia have accused each other of violating a 3-day ceasefire. Representatives from nearly 30 countries have attended the event. China, Belarus, Cuba and several Central Asian nations sent high-level delegations, while leaders from Serbia and Slovakia were the only European representatives. Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev and Laos's leader cancelled their trips to Russia for Victory Day at the last minute. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky criticised the Russian military parade on May 9th as a parade of cynicism, accusing Moscow of rewriting history and glorifying aggression. Meanwhile, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un marked Victory Day with a rare visit to the Russian embassy in Pyongyang, pledging stronger ties with Moscow. North Korean soldiers in uniform were spotted observing the parade. A Chinese military contingent also paraded in Red Square. The Kremlin emphasized that the attendance of leaders from Asia, Africa and Latin America shows Russia is not isolated.
Russia and China have signed a series of agreements to deepen their comprehensive strategic partnership, a show of solidarity also displayed by President Xi Jinping's prominence at the Victory Day parade. Joining us live from Lisbon, Portugal, to discuss this is political analyst Anna Evans. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, Jason.
Thank you. At a time when the Trump administration is displaying increased skepticism towards Moscow's intentions regarding ending the war in Ukraine, how important is President Xi's presence at the parade? Also, what is China's strategy between Russia and the US?
Well, it is rather clear that the presence of President Xi Jinping from China at the parade is a very strong show of force to Russia. So Xi Jinping is showing that he is still aligned with Russia and as aligned as ever. In fact, probably more than ever. And, you know, there is no way, according to this very, very manifest demonstration of support, there is no way that Northern American President Trump can decouple China and Russia. I think this is very clear, very evident in the posture of the two leaders and in the presence of Chinese military personnel as well in Moscow. And so, unfortunately, this posture, as well as the signing of a series of bilateral agreements over the past couple of days, as well as the declaration of a comprehensive strategic agreement between China and Russia, again, since President Xi Jinping arrived to Moscow, this is not very good news for the United States and for Europe, because it also is a sign, one more signal that what we are seeing in terms of Russia's support, economic, technological, societal and political from China is not decreasing. On the contrary, it becomes very manifest. And so, as we know, trade between China and Russia has surged very significantly since Russia invaded Ukraine because of the Western sanctions to a great extent. So the trade statistics are really much higher at this point. And in the first year after the war, trade increased by 60%, which is really a very high increase. And as we know, China is using the opportunity to buy fossil fuels from Russia. And China is an avid consumer of fossil fuels. It is the largest consumer in the world. And again, because Russia cannot easily sell in international markets, China is benefiting from lower prices that Russia exports in its fossil fuels. So again, you know, it is a win-win situation. Russia manages to to export its oil, and China manages to buy it at lower costs. Also, what we see is that in the realm of technology and advanced electronics, semiconductors and mechanical components, aerospace components, and electronic communications, China is also playing a critical role for supplying these kinds of components, which are essential for Russia's war effort. So again, in this technology and dual usage technology, the trade relations between China and Russia are again very, very important. And furthermore, even in military terms, if we look at the number of joint military exercises since the beginning of the war in Ukraine, of Russia's invasion Ukraine, the number of joint Chinese-Russian military exercises have grown extensively. So that is one more pillar of these very close cooperation between Russia and China. And these are two powers, so China is certainly the strong pillar in this relationship, and China is probably, again, the one pillar between the two that is benefiting the most from the relationship. But what we see is that this is a very close front that is manifesting its power and leverage vis-à-vis the West, the Western powers, the great rivalry of the United States, and also all the attempts versus all the attempts from Europe to support Ukraine and stop the war in Ukraine. So unfortunately, I don't think this is a very good news for Europe, which, by the way, commemorates also the 9th of May, is a very important date in Europe because of the Schuman Declaration in 1950, which was the beginning of the démarche, the beginning of the steps towards the creation of the European Community and later the European Union. So Europe's Day, this is a very important day for Europe, but again, for very different reasons. And looking at what happened today at Russia's parade, not necessarily a very optimistic day for Europe.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Today marks 80 years since the defeat of fascism in World War II, a conflict that reshaped nations and left a lasting impact on global history. In this special report, we explore Azerbaijan's critical role in that war, from the oil fields to the battlefield, and how its contributions became part of a larger struggle for freedom and survival.
One of the bloodiest chapters in human history. The Second World War claimed the lives of millions across the globe. It was not merely a military confrontation, but a struggle for the very survival of humanity. Azerbaijan's contribution to this struggle stood prominently. More than 640,000 Azerbaijanis were mobilized to the front lines in the war against Nazi Germany. Of these, 300,000 never returned. They fell in battle. Yet what they left behind was courage, determination, and a profound love for their homeland. Azerbaijan's national divisions, the 77th, 223rd, 336th, 402nd, and 416th Rifle Divisions, carved a path from the Caucasus to Berlin, writing their place into history. In April 1945, the 416th Division was among the first units to enter Berlin. Under the command of Colonel Rashid Majidov, they raised the victory banner over the Brandenburg Gate, a powerful symbol of Azerbaijan's role in defeating fascism. This victory was forged not only on the battlefield, but also in the factories. During the war years, Baku became the Soviet Union's fuel lifeline. In 1941 alone, Azerbaijani oil workers extracted a record 23.5 million tons of oil. Throughout the war, Azerbaijan supplied 75 million tons of oil, 22 million tons of petrol, and 11 million units of ammunition, figures representing more than just numbers. They reflect the heartbeat of an invisible front. 4 out of every 5 Soviet tanks, planes, and vehicles ran on fuel from Baku. Nazi Germany's push into the Caucasus, known as Operation Edelweiss, aimed squarely at capturing this strategic resource, the black gold of Azerbaijan. But Baku resisted. Azerbaijan resisted. Their steadfast determination ultimately overturned the invaders' plans. Baku fought not only with oil, but with iron, steel, and unyielding will. 63 new industrial plants were launched, over 300 inventions implemented, and 130 types of weapons and military equipment produced. Factories switched to 12-hour shifts. Women and children worked tirelessly on production lines. While battles raged at the front, victory was being forged in the heart of Baku. Azerbaijani soldiers fought not only within Soviet borders, but also contributed to the liberation of countries such as Poland, France, Yugoslavia, and Italy. Among them, Mehdi Husseinzadeh, known by his codename Mikhailo, became legendary in Yugoslavia and Italy for his bravery, sabotaging enemy operations, neutralizing more than 1,000 enemy officers, and becoming a hero of the resistance. In France, Ahmadiyya Jabrailov became celebrated as a hero after joining the French resistance. Known affectionately as Karko, Jabrailov participated in daring operations, risking his life repeatedly to rescue approximately 500 children from Nazi captivity, ensuring their safe return home. During the war, Azerbaijani railway workers transported 1.6 million wagons of supplies to the front. From the Caspian Sea region, 434,000 troops and civilians, hundreds of vehicles, and tons of munitions were delivered. Some 149,000 citizens volunteered as blood donors, sending over 41,000 liters of blood and thousands of medical supplies to the front. The Azerbaijani people mobilized as one nation. Women in factories, children in workshops, and men at the front all shared the burden of war. The public contributed personal resources to the defense fund, including 15 kilograms of gold, 320 million rubles, and 125 wagons of winter clothing. The entire nation carried the weight of the war on its shoulders. 80 years have passed, yet the echoes of victory over fascism still resonate through the free streets of the world. Azerbaijan did not participate in this war solely as a Soviet republic. It fought and sacrificed as a people united for the future of humanity. Victory in World War II was achieved not only by arms, but through the unity and sacrifice of millions. Azerbaijan's role in this struggle spanned from its vital oil production to the courageous frontline operations that helped bring the war in Europe to an end.
Each year, Italians gather to honor all who resisted fascism, including Azerbaijani heroes of Monte Desse. Their names may be lost, but their struggle for freedom is etched into the memory of this land. Our correspondent Andy Mioch has more from Monte Desse, Italy.
They fell seeking freedom in vain. That is the inscription of the plaque commemorating the death of about 118 Azerbaijani soldiers killed by Nazi fascist forces in Monte Desse in the north of Italy in April 1945, just weeks before fascism inevitably met its own end. The massacre of Monte Desse, as it's now known, was the most severe instance of violence during the Second World War here in the Bergamo area, second only to the bombing of the Dalmine factory in 1944. To this day, Italian sources say that the massacre has not received the attention it deserves, and many questions were left unanswered. Researcher and author Andrea Piocelli made it his mission to set the record straight. Gathering testimonies and sifting through archives, he put out a book on the events of April 1945.
So, the local people referred to them, both in oral testimonies and in written records of the Italian resistance, as Mongolians. This was because some of them, though not all, likely came from Central Asia, from the Soviet republics located there. So, they were called Mongols, or people believed to have come from Mongolia. The locals did not know exactly where these men came from. It's possible this was simply a general assumption, but we cannot say for certain why the term Mongols was used.
Originally captured Soviet soldiers that defected to the Germans, the Azerbaijanis killed in Monte Desse deserted the SS division they were a part of. In 1945, several thousand of their countrymen were part of the East Turkic SS division that was sent to Bergamo to fight the partisans. Unwilling to obey, many of them left for neutral Switzerland, while some tried to join the partisans. The Monte Desse group disobeyed the German command to head towards the front and decided to desert, working with a group of partisans from the Bergamo resistance. They reached the village late at night on April 12th, after a day of marching, with the Nazi fascists and other former Soviet soldiers still under German command on their trail.
There were partisan guides, but these guides did not have clear orders. The Azerbaijanis themselves likely had internal disagreements. As a result, several hundred men waited the entire day on top of Canto Alto. Only in the evening did they descend from Canto Alto toward Monte Desse, toward the village. They camped in the surrounding meadows, farmhouses and rural cottages, the Kasine that you've seen. By then, however, it's clear that their presence had already been reported to the German and fascist commands. On the morning of April 13th, German and fascist troops were dispatched to block the Azerbaijanis' route. At dawn, though we don't know exactly why it happened at that moment, there is a very specific testimony from the village priest. He recalled that as he rang the church bells at 6 in the morning, the first shots were fired by the German and fascist troops who had arrived from Bergamo. The Azerbaijanis were caught by surprise for the most part. What began as a battle quickly turned into a manhunt by the fascists and Germans through the fields, farmhouses and hills surrounding the village.
With some 45 dead in the fierce firefight, more than 70 were captured and shot without mercy. The bodies were stripped of personal effects and any means of identification. They were abandoned and buried in mass graves days later. It took 5 years for their remains to be united and buried at the cemetery of Monte Desse. The Bergamo province, as most of Italy, is adorned with monuments reminding everyone of the dark times and victims, but also the fight and courage that brought about the fall of fascism. Each year, all across Italy, commemoration services are held for those fallen in the fight against fascism. Among those, a service for the Azerbaijani soldiers of Monte Desse. From Bergamo for A News, Andy Mioch.
Algeria is marking the anniversary of a tragic chapter in its history, the mass killings of civilians by French forces on 8 May 1945, known as the Day of Remembrance. This date commemorates the violent crackdown on pro-independence demonstrations, which left thousands dead and marked a turning point in Algeria's struggle for freedom.
Algeria is commemorating the anniversary of the mass killings of civilians by French forces on 8th May. The day, officially designated as the Day of Remembrance by a 2020 presidential decree signed by President Abdelmajid Tebboune, marks a painful chapter in the country's history. The killings, described as crimes against humanity by Algerian officials, reflect the violent response to the pro-independence demonstrations that took place in the aftermath of the Second World War. The roots of this tragic event trace back to 1945, when thousands of Algerians took to the streets of the town of Sétif, as well as nearby towns like Guelma and Karata, to demand independence following the Allied victory over fascism. Initially permitted by French colonial authorities under the condition that only French flags be displayed, the demonstrations quickly escalated when some participants raised Algerian flags, a symbol of the independence movement. This act prompted a harsh crackdown by French security forces, resulting in mass arrests and a violent confrontation. Reports from the time indicate that French troops, supported by armed militia units, responded with force, detaining tens of thousands, carrying out executions without trial, and bombing villages with aircraft and naval fire. According to Algerian sources, entire families were reportedly burned alive, and many villages were destroyed in the ensuing chaos. Estimates of the death toll vary widely. Some accounts suggest that the initial crackdown resulted in around 1,200 deaths, while other estimates range from 15,000 to 20,000. American archival documents reportedly place the figure closer to 30,000, while Algerian government sources claim that as many as 45,000 people were killed in what is now seen as a critical moment in the country's long struggle for independence. Today, the legacy of these events remains deeply etched in the collective memory of Algerians, marking a pivotal turning point in their fight for sovereignty and self-determination.
Armenia and Azerbaijan are now engaged in direct negotiations over peace agreement, with Russia's role as a mediator considered complete. That's according to Armenian Security Council Secretary Armen Grigoryan via Armenian media. He was quoted saying, "Russia has already played its role as a mediator. We now consider direct talks with Azerbaijan to be more productive," end of quote. Grigoryan also added that there are no updates yet regarding the signing of the peace agreement. On 13th March, Armenia's foreign ministry announced that Yerevan and Baku had agreed on the text of the peace agreement, effectively concluding the negotiation process. Armenian officials said they are now waiting for Baku to propose a date and venue for the signing. However, Baku has since insisted that for the peace agreement to be finalized, Armenia must first dissolve the OSCE Minsk group and remove references to the Declaration of Independence from its constitution, which includes territorial claims against Azerbaijan. Armenian Prime Minister Nicole Pashinian has expressed strong optimism about the prospects for lasting peace between Armenia and Azerbaijan. He stated that there would be no war between the two countries, emphasizing that the region is moving forward towards peace. He said the draft peace agreement aimed at normalizing relations has been finalized and is ready to be signed. He noted that the region deserves to live in peace and prosperity and reaffirmed Armenia's commitment to that goal. At the Copenhagen Climate Ministerial, COP29 President Mukhtar Babayev highlighted Azerbaijan's growing leadership in clean energy. He said the country aims to reach 30% renewables by 2030, with big projects like offshore wind in the Caspian Sea, green zones in East Zangezur and Karabakh, and energy corridors in Europe. He also noted growing cooperation with Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan on regional green energy.
You know, the Azerbaijan now the leader in the in renewable energy projects in the region. And under the leadership of the president of Azerbaijan, Mr. Ilham Aliyev, this program successfully implemented. And you know, we have the government targeted in 2030 to have more than 30% of renewables in our energy balance, and this program is very efficiently performed by the necessity entities. We invited a lot of foreign investors to work together with Azerbaijan with this program. And the government of Azerbaijan, the president of Azerbaijan, already declared the special zones or green zones in Azerbaijan. You know, like Ichivan, the green zone, East Zangezur and Karabakh zone. Another one, green zone. That's I think it is very good chance to demonstrate how the country with a very long and rich oil and gas history turned the economy, turned the priorities from the energy, from the traditional energy to renewable, to green energy. And I think it is so important for all of us, for our team, for the government entities, for the private sector, for society to mobilize, to perform these plans. And you know, it is not only. I mean, Azerbaijan is started another one very big and ambitious plan to deliver offshore wind to EU consumers. Maybe you're familiar with this information. And you know, the potential of Caspian Sea offshore wind. I mean, the Azerbaijani sector is around 157 gigawatts. Huge possible volumes of the green electricity. And now we have the chance to perform another one, green energy corridor program, to perform this program, to deliver offshore wind through by cables through Georgia, under the Black Sea, to Romania and to Hungary. And another one big opportunity for us to invite more producers of the alternative energy, of green energy. And you know, at COP29, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, these three countries demonstrate how it's possible to deliver also to international green energy market the alternative energy produced in Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. They joined this energy corridor to European consumers. Last April in Baku, on Southern Gas Corridor Steering Committee, within this timing, another one big project started. It's another one. Marshroute is from Caspian Sea to Turkey and Bulgaria. Another one, green energy corridor. And I think these projects will be delivered a little good opportunities, good chances for other countries to join this process, to join these projects. And it's another one demonstration how the oil and gas country in the past demonstrate this green ambitions, green projects ambition. And well, I think it is for Azerbaijan as at COP29, for our team is another one chance to demonstrate how the COP29 team also continue this leadership in these climate discussions. And also Azerbaijan is now our NDC also under preparation, and our government is working very hard to prepare the NDC and submit it in several weeks to UNFCCC.
Kazakhstan's Senate has officially ratified a key protocol amending the founding agreement of the Cooperation Council of Turkic-speaking states, also known as the Organization of Turkic States. The move is seen as another step towards strengthening regional unity and collaboration among Turkic nations.
Kazakhstan Senate approved the law on ratification of the Protocol of Amendments to the Nakhchivan Agreement, originally signed in 2009. This agreement laid the groundwork for the creation of the Cooperation Council of Turkic-speaking states, a multilateral organization comprising Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkey, and Uzbekistan. The new protocol introduces a series of amendments aimed at updating and expanding the scope of the organization's mandate. The ratification signals Kazakhstan's commitment to regional integration under the umbrella of Turkic unity. In recent years, the Organization of Turkic States has evolved from a primarily cultural initiative into a more robust geopolitical bloc, with growing ambitions in transport connectivity, space cooperation, and regional conflict mediation. With this move, Kazakhstan aligns itself more closely with the long-term strategic objectives of the Organization of Turkic States, as the group prepares for upcoming summits and initiatives designed to deepen cooperation among its members and expand its influence on the international stage.
That's all we have for now. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to WWII News.